to have this conversation with you all.
Absolutely.
And to find out about, we know that our prison system is in a crisis. We know that our parole board is in a crisis, and I'm going to give you all, just to tell everybody who you are, and then we'll move into some questions. I don't have anything prepared. I'm just going to be freelancing these questions. Okay?
I'm Lynn Head, and actually, when I got out of the car last Wednesday in Maplesville, which is where my husband met my daddy while he was bringing me home after they took my state car away, woohoo! My husband said, "I'm so glad to see you, Private Citizen Head," because I used to laugh and say, "I hate it when people call me Chairman Head. I feel like some kind of dictator from some strange place with no democracy." So I am with the parole board, I guess, for another few hours. I'm effective September 30th at 11:59 p.m. That will end my tour with the parole board. And I corrected Ralph today. I resigned of my own free will before they threatened to kick me out.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Hicks. I serve as the Administrative Director of the Offender Alumni Association. I'm also a formerly incarcerated individual, a veteran, a mother, and currently on probation myself.
I'm Dena Dickerson from the Offender Alumni Association. I am a former incarcerated person and one that has a lifetime of parole for a nonviolent crime.
Wow.
You
I
can go
got
ask
you.
for a party. You can go get a party. Okay.
I just happened to look back and see Dena sit back there, so to invite her to the table on this conversation. As I stated, I did not prepare any questions. I am asking questions based on my professional experience and what I know about probation and parole and the practices in Alabama. Being an officer in the state of Florida, the lingo is the same all across the board. Where Florida does not have parole, they abolish parole, but they have probation. So we're gonna shoot this question to Lynn. What can you tell the people, based on your experience being the chairman of the parole board and sitting on the parole board, what you would like to see happen? What would you like to see? How we reimagine parole, what we see now versus in Alabama now, where we can reimagine seeing where it can go in the future?
From about May of 2016 until October the 12th of 2018, you need to look back at the parole grant rates from that time, and they need to be reimagined to that for now. During that time frame, we were following justice reinvestment procedures, and that's not a term that was created by any legislator of the state of Alabama. That was created by folks in the National Theater of Criminal Justice for best practices among paroling authorities that follow validated risk assessments that have no reference to what gender, what race you are, what your sexual orientation is. They focus only on the crime that is committed because they have seen statistically that those people with those types of backgrounds in crimes are at a greater risk to reoffend. And by the way, people who commit violent crimes are not on that risk assessment scale. Violence is not mentioned on the risk assessment scale. That's a very huge oversimplification, but we need to follow in Alabama best practices for parole, and that means if the risk assessment says that that person is at a low risk on parole, certainly we need to consider and be compassionate to what has happened in that person's community where they offended and with respect to their victim and their family, if there was a victim. But we need to follow those best practices, and they also include evidence-based approaches to reentry. And I'll just go ahead and add this, not that this is about me, but that mission needs to be followed privately in whatever avenue you can follow it. For Adam, it would be to create opportunities for his clients to be diverted from the prison system, as he stated. For Danny, Danny's approach would be he said something I agree with completely. I was a prosecutor for, I think it was 18 years before I went to the parole board. And I went to the parole board because I realized that sending people to prison wasn't getting anything done regarding recidivism. We need to look at opportunities, evidence-based opportunities to divert people from going to prison, and when they come out, to help them transition back into society successfully. And there's a way to do that, and there are best practices to do that, and that's what needs to be the focus of the parole board. That focus is no longer the focus of the parole board, but it is mine, and that's why I'm not there anymore.
Stephanie, we know that you are formerly incarcerated in federal time, and the federal system is very different from the state system. Can you just share with the audience your experience on federal parole and probation, what does that consist of?
I don't have any horror stories to give regarding my probation. I report online monthly. I don't even have to see my probation officer unless she wants to see me or I just want to see her. I had an opportunity to have an extremely good probation officer, and she became my friend. So she had the approach of, from the day one that I walked into her office, pre-sentencing, to treat me like an individual. And she told me, she said, I'm not here to make your life worse. I'm here to help you make your life better. And she did all of that. So my experience, when I hear all the things that go on with the state, particularly those who are unable to pay the monthly probation fees and what happens with them, I don't have that issue. I don't. My money can be paid online. I don't have to put it in anybody's hand. I don't have to go pee in a cup. None of that. So with that, it gave me an opportunity to not continue to be broken, because she gave me the opportunity to know that she thought I was not broken. So when I came home, she's treated me the same way she treated me when I went, and she has always been my cheerleader. She said she's on Team 7, directly. So that has given me an opportunity to be involved in a lot of the activism that you see me do, because she has made that possible. She has not stepped in the way of that. She's allowed me to do that.
That's awesome. That's what a real probation and parole officer should do. You know, with me being an officer for nearly a decade, my son was sitting in an Alabama prison. I worked in a county, the Phoenix Springs, Walton County, which was predominantly white, only African-American female officer in my office. So the same thing that Stephanie was lifted up with her probation officer, I did my people like that at full, because I wanted somebody to treat my son the same way when he got out. Like he was a human being with dignity and respect. Dena, you are doing some awesome work, sister. I tip my hat off to you. Just getting to know you and Stephanie, y'all hit the ground running, know the work that Stephanie is doing, how passionate she is about the things that she's doing, how passionate you are about the things that you are doing. With the Offender Alumni Association, we've had plenty of conversation about parole. How can we reimagine parole? We talked about putting a cap on people that have lifetime parole. As Chairman Hicks said, you need to apply for a pardon. What I see with the Alabama pardon process is no accountability. It's a long, drawn-out process. You and I know a brother by the name of Milton King. He just got a pardon. It took him 10 years to get a pardon. And from what I know, being an officer, I said, it's just like doing a pre-sentence investigation. That file is assigned to someone. You have a time frame to complete that file. And what I told him is this: your file was assigned to somebody in 2008. It just sat on their desk. It was assigned to somebody in 2010. It just sat on their desk. So when he did finally get the call in 2018 from a retired PO who had come out of retirement to work some pardon files, it took him 10 years to get a pardon. And doing my research, and I'm looking at other states and seeing the pardon process, it's like it's a breakdown. It tells you from point A to point B, when this happened, when this happened, when this happened. How do we reimagine that situation with people like yourself that's out here doing this excellent work, that's deserving of a pardon? With the process being accountability, because what it tells me is we have a pardon unit, and people are being paid a state check, but somebody's not doing their job. So there's no oversight. So how do we reimagine that?
I think, well, for me, we tend to have, the scales are always tilted, right? The thing that you expect of me and to hold me accountable for it too, you don't, for the sake of titles or whatever the case may be. And that's all across the board. If I do something, being a poor black lady in Alabama, or whatever those labels are to say, I fit into this category or what and how you want to deal with me, then you too should fit in that category, regardless of who you are. But if I'm a police officer, since I was decorated for 15 years and I did all this kind of good stuff prior to a decision that I made that was irresponsible, that would cost someone's life or whatever it is, then that's looked at a different way because of this, and that shouldn't be so. So to reimagine something is to actually start looking at persons as individuals and looking at choices being either irresponsible or not, and what do we do to correct this behavior. So now we're talking about actually investing in individuals, and that's something that we do not do. And I just spoke with a group of students at the Department of Justice. Well, no, over at UAB, some social work students, and I was letting them know that you wouldn't punish your child. Correction is for correction, and I agree. I'm not a victim. I've done some things. I deserve some punishment for it, but you are not going to put your child on the corner for the rest of their life. And I think that's what we do. Once you get this stupid label, that's just it. I've just discarded you like waste. You're no more good. And so to reimagine that is to look at it as it really is. It's just like innocent until proven guilty is not so. So where do you even come up with this? We're going to offer you this so that we can clear the books, or we're going to offer you this so that we can get a conviction. Right? So you're asking me something, and the truth of the matter is the biases and the prejudices and the classisms and all of that. And if we don't deal with it as it is, then we're not. And that means I have to give myself a search. Every time I talk to one of my guys and my mentees about this is what's going on, they'll tell me, and they'll remind me, Dena, I am not a victim. So we are owning our stuff today. I just want to do the next right thing. I want to have a life after this right here. I've done all the work that's necessary, and it's a continuous work because we'll continue to develop. Why? Because we're coming behind the 8 ball here for many of us that have been incarcerated. When we go back to the PSI report, why do we even take the PSI report if we're not really going to use it? You're using this to say this, and this to justify the choices and the decisions that you're going to make, to say this is why we're doing this. And so what do we do with that? I just got an 18-year-old that's scared to death in a homeless shelter because he comes from a very bad family. His mother's on drugs. The dad that he's known all of his life that raised him is his stepfather. And the reason why he was put in the DHR system is because his stepfather's sister keeps reminding him that you're not my brother's son. So he's scared to death, and he said, man, I think out there. And so he's deciding now to turn himself back into DHR. Because they didn't emancipate him, but they signed a release and had him to sign that he's gonna release himself from the custody of them psychiatrists. Because they needed a bed for a younger child. Now, if he does something to feed himself inside of the next 6 or 7 months, God forbid, if someone, because he's vulnerable right now, and he becomes a criminal, God forbid, this baby's gonna be lost in the system. You know, so I don't know what the answer is. I know what you're asking, but it's for us to give ourselves a search. And the reason why I did not file for a pardon 3 years ago is because this is what I've told myself, because now Dena criminalized herself now. I've been convinced that I'm just this bad, gory person, right? I can't get past it. As much work as I do, I can't get past the thought that still lingers. Even though I know it's different today. And you know what I say? Oh, I don't need no pardon, man. My probation also let me go anywhere, and I'm not planning on doing anything else either. So I have plagued and labeled me still. The mental anguish that comes with this. You corrected me. You've given me all the tools I need to have a successful life, and I'm going forward, and I'm going to help others do the same thing. But you cannot remove, not the negative stigma, but the pain and the anguish that we go through incarceration, being dehumanized. You forced me to look at a wall when regular people came into the institution, man, for 10 years, man. And you want me to be able to look at a waitress when she asks me one simple question, ma'am, what are you having? And I put a menu up to my face because I couldn't look at her. Because I could not look at her. Another human being. To let her know I want some chicken. So,
Wow, I'm telling you, some serious scars come with all of this, and we're gonna ask Lynn. We know about the SB 67, State Bill 67, which is dip or dunk. I have a story with dip and dunk. My son was dip. After coming out of prison in 2017, he had to come and face me in his parole hearing, and what we're learning in the process of all of that. I saw my son, as Maureen talked about earlier, get strung out on synthetic marijuana in prison. And I had to deal with that, coming back to the streets. So now he's not only a risk at reoffending again, or parole being revoked, but he's what we call a public health issue. Now, we gotta deal with that. My mom is retired. I'm at a point in my life where I'm trying to advocate, mobilize, and do the things that I'm doing, but I still have to be his mom to this parolee, where I had to interrupt that behavior, which means I went to the PO and decided he needed to get treated. So this is what's happening with the people that are coming out of prison. They're coming out addicted. So you put this pressure on the parole officer to be the social worker, the mental health worker. They all of this. And what I know from being a PO, when you have somebody that's spinning out of control, the easiest thing for us to do is what we call easy case management. That's to lock you up. Because now we've taken you off the streets. And that happened to my son. So he got here, went into these so-called treatment facilities, transitional houses that I feel need to be regulated more by the state, because a lot of them are, just people popping up houses and collecting money, and the people are still in worse shape than they are. So we would definitely like to see some regulations, some people popping up some real houses with social workers in there, with counselors, with people not pretending to say they're doing these things, but you collected money and you put these people out here to go to work. So my son got dumped. So I want Lynn to kind of like expound on what happens in the revocation process with those who still have prison attached to, because parole, as they say, is a privilege, where you put place back in the community and you're doing the rest of your time, there's a taxpayer prison sentence out in the community. So being a mom, I was fearful to know whether I was gonna get the 45 days, and he was gonna go back and do the remainder of his prison sentence, and had to go back up for parole. Because when he got dumped, he had to go up for parole. Well, he got a revocation. And here, the first parole revocation was 2013, and hearing officer recommended that he did 3 years and come up for parole. No new crime, just a technical violation, not following the rules. So I want Lynn to kind of expound on how is that decision made when they get those files, especially these technical violations, because we're seeing a whole lot of that going around the country. While everybody was paying attention to the front end, mass incarceration, mass supervision was rising. We got 6.4 million people that are on probation and parole, and the majority of these people are entering back into the system on technical violations. No new crimes now. Tax. That's a lot of prison overcrowding. So I want them to kind of expound on how are these decisions made when you see, like my son had a class A felon, which was a robbery one. When you see these people coming back into the system, and how's the decision made, whether or not you're going to deal them or you're going to do a full revocation. So kind of expound on it.
Okay, if they're on probation, you know, we don't have any jurisdiction over them. I know you know that, but I'm letting everybody else know. If they have a technical violation, and a technical violation is a dirty urine screen, failure to report, or failure to pay, then the worst that should happen is you should be dumped. You can be dumped a maximum of 3 times for a total maximum of 45 days. So unless it's absconding from a specifically conditioned facility, like if the parole board ordered that they complete a program and they quit going to the program, then that's absconding from a special condition, and that they can be revoked for. So the hearing officer who hears the information, and we actually do, I can't say I know them all, but we did have some very compassionate, conscientious hearing officers. They would make a recommendation, and then that file comes to us after they have reviewed the individual. They're to give us any kind of aggravating or mitigating circumstances, and then they make a recommendation based about if they should be revoked, and if so, for how long. There are actually guidelines as to the offense. For a robbery one, they could, since it's a Class A, they could be revoked for up to 5 years if they had that left on their sentence. If it was let's say a theft, 2, they could be revoked for no more than 2 years. And to be honest, which I can be so much more honest today than I would, but to be honest, I would look and see who the hearing officer was and what they recommended, and if it was some hearing officers, I would pay a little less attention to it because I trusted the hearing officer to recommend something fair, but if it was others, I would look at it and then go all through the file and review all the testimony and all of that, and if they recommended 5, and you know, that which some of them recommended 5 on every single case, I would go back and recommend 1 sometimes, or, you know, but then the board votes. That all those files come to us, you know, on open public meeting days, and that's another thing that y'all need to know. For a revocation or the delinquency, a delinquency is required for us to send, in other words, an individual who's on parole is alleged to have been delinquent while on parole. Either they're not reporting or something, and a warrant must be issued by DOC because they're actually an inmate of DOC who's been paroled. We have to do those orders, or any of our business has to be done during an open public meeting. So if there's not an open public meeting scheduled that day, those things don't happen. And those are routine things that shouldn't require a vote, and they shouldn't require but 1 signature because, you know, they're being reviewed based on there's some oversight, in other words. So there are people sometimes who are sitting in jail who whose delinquencies are ultimately voided, and they're in jail extra time if we're not meeting that week, or if we're not meeting, and we only had them on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, so that if they got written up on Thursday night, we wouldn't see them until Tuesday morning. And by then, somebody may say, well, the probation is off, the parole officer's decided that he can find something else for him to do, so he wants to void the warrant. Well, we should have done that Friday morning. So anyway, all those revocation decisions have to be made in open public meetings. And the last time I met with the governor, I said we need some legislation to change that requirement so that those routine decisions don't have to be during an open public meeting. And any member of the board can sign this during any, at any time. So that those people, and two, they're sitting in the county jail as opposed to DOC, and I don't know, in Tuscaloosa, any inmate in Tuscaloosa County Jail, if I had them for a witness or whatever, or if I just knew them, because they were frequent flyers, they would say, Miss Lynn, please, let's go get me a deal on my case, and I'll go back to DOC. They hated to be in the county jail. So, that's how the process works. Does that explain that? Okay.
That's good. That's good news to know. Stephanie, I know that you say no issues, no horror stories. But what do you see reimagining probation and parole that we could be doing, different?
One thing that we could be doing differently is that all of these entities that are involved in part of paroles need to talk to each other. There is no communication between these parties, and I don't understand that. Maybe because I worked for the federal government for 15 years, the Department of Veteran Affairs, we talk to each other if we didn't like each other. We talk so that we can get the work done. And the other part of that too is not just the communication as far as between them, but the communication with that individual. Because there are some people coming home that want to do the right thing. They just need somebody to give them the opportunity to do the right thing. I think that Alabama is not really interested in reentry. Not interested at all. If we were, we would have more than one significant reentry program in our state. So when they talk about they want people to do better, I won't believe it until you show me. You start giving organizations that are on the ground, that are meeting these people's needs where they are, giving them the money to be able to continue to do what they do, expand what they do, and not hinder us. That's the big issue that we have, because when someone comes out, in order to go to prison, if you weren't quite innocent, there was something broken. So we send somebody broken into a broken system, and we send them back home broken. And we expect them to survive. That makes no sense to me. It makes no sense. And legitimately, when people try to make an opportunity, then we deal with this stigma, because it's there. I can tell you the first time, and Dena know, I thought I was going to be okay, because I had education, I had experience, I just knew I was going to be okay. But I went to a job interview at a temp service. And that person, you go into an interview, you looking around, I didn't see a degree or anything like that on the wall. And at first, she was like, oh yeah, we can place you here, and I think that's temp to perm, and it was all lovely. But I don't believe in wasting anybody's time, and I don't want them to waste my time. So I said, we didn't discuss this. The whole interview changed along with the handshake at the end. And a person has to sit there, because I'm on probation, I can't be in there cooking. So I have to sit there and endure the humiliation, because I can't burn that bridge, because I don't know if I have to cross it again, and keep pressing. But I keep pressing and still being oppressed. Something has got to give.
Dena, you and I have had this conversation, this discussion on parolees not being able to attend parole hearings. with technology that we have in the world today, it is no need for that. Because they have representation to show up and speak before a 3-board panel. How can, and it's going to be for you and Lena as well, because I want her to expound on this, but you and I have had a conversation stating that it's time for that to change as well. Even if they had to put satellites in every, just when a person goes in for parole in that prison, that steady state communication needs to happen. It needs to be something sent from the parole board, or, well, the parole board had already sent that information over to classification. They send the letters out to the individuals that are in the institution. They know who's all going for parole. So I think it should be, I don't think it should be nothing that should be publicly announced, but those that are inside the institution should, receive a letter saying, go for parole on September the 30th and come into the classroom wherever. Satellite. So this gives the parole board members an opportunity to see the individual for who they are today versus who they were 25 or 30 years ago. Because basically, in my opinion, people are still being judged by the institution. You have an institutional file. You have this person's criminal history, disciplinary records, success in the prison, and that's all they have. And the support that's coming from the community. But do the parole board really know, the person? Because if the victim is involved, you got the victims, coming in and protesting. But the person that's facing parole is sitting in prison wondering, did I make parole? Gotta wait on somebody to call, gotta call somebody to see did I make it? And they haven't had an opportunity for the board to even see who they are. To weigh that in to see who they are today. What do you feel about that needs to change?
Well, we got $1 billion to come up with a solution.
So, for sure. Well, that's gonna force us to still look at people as human beings, and if I don't see you, right, being a human being, then, maybe I can sleep at night. But I was honored and fortunate enough to see someone be a human on the bench, so thank you.
Did I vote for you, Parole?
No, I have a very dear friend of mine that had served 18 years, and the family, because I never want to disregard the victims, because we victimize society. Our children, families outside, and we have our victims and bodies and stuff like that, so never. But this person had did something 18 years ago, and the family wasn't there, and they had got word that that family was tired, and I know they were, because they too have a relation pain. They never heal from that, because they're constantly getting this thing stretched, and the scar, the wound is still open. And so the DA, someone was there on the opposition, and it was from the Attorney General's office. And they came in the stead of the Attorney General, they came in the stead of the DA from Jefferson County, and this is what they said, and they are not ready to release them right now because they did this, and this. This person was 20 years old, they had been in there about 18 years and all this stuff, but they kept talking about the 20-year-old that was hot-headed. It was over a cell phone, so we know that this was very dumb for you to take a life, right? And that got the men attention on the bench. And they were going to go with that. And I looked and I'm breathing, and I'm like, God, because I've met this person and I've worked with this person, and that's the thing, you get to know people. You got to get to know these individuals so that you can really give them what they need. So anyway, I saw the note coming, and I messed around, and I saw this head, and I looked at it, and I knew then that it was going to be a yes based on the next thing out of that person's mouth. So that happened 18 years ago. And that's what you said about this action father. So she's going to be with her sick mother today. She's doing well. So know that all of the decisions have been made. Amen. And so what I think is we have to look at the individual. We have to remember that this is of the past. And if we are a forgiving state, right, and spiritual as we say we are, then we'll really start acting practicing those acts of forgiveness, because we know things can change, time can produce changes, and we have to look for that instead of always looking for the worst and it to continue to be that way. It's not so, right? And so I think, to piggyback on Stephanie, is that reentry, it starts at the bench. The minute the individual is sentenced, you go to work right then on that pre-sentencing investigation. Whatever it was that you got that is a determinant factor in you giving a person the amount of time that you gave them. For whatever reason, mine cost me 114 years. I served 10 years on it. And I went up for parole 6 times before I got the yes. And so every no I got, I knew I was a day closer to home, because I wasn't supposed to get a hearing according to my judge in Madison County for the first 30 years of his sentence. That's what he wanted me to do. And for whatever reason, the heavens itself kept sending me up and kept sending me up. And the last time my parole advocate was there, the last no I got, she said that the board can't believe that you've made this many changes. But if you can continue to do what you've been doing over these last 9 years, for another 15 months, they said, they'll let you go home. They wanted you. These were the words that they used. Is to pay the piper a little while longer. So that we want people to change, to give them an opportunity to live forward past their mistakes. Or do we exert our powers in ways just because we have it? So what is it that we really want? Why are you sentencing the individual? Because they've done something. Okay, let's say that. But then what is the next step? When the child leaves home, right? He's going to kindergarten. He's going to start something, because the end result is eventually we're going to give him his life back, right? He's going to have his own life in his hands. So you want your child to be able to take care of himself at the end of whatever his stages and phases is. So that's the same thing when you come into the judge's chamber and you get your sentence, and now you're in the county, now you're going to. So what is it now? I wasn't supposed to take a program. Because now you're talking about everybody communicating, and you were saying in one separate instance, every hand that touches that inmate needs to be communicated. Because we communicate when you get ready to release me. 20 years later, you send a note to the board, don't let them back in Jefferson County. Well, why not? The only time you thought about that person was when you sentenced them 20 years ago, and now that you've got a notice that they're coming back up for parole. That's totally unfair. That's unfair if we want to talk about it. Right? Because you need to communicate, we're sentencing you here. You shouldn't have anything else to do with that individual. Once we get before you, let you do your job. Judge, you did yours. DA, you did yours. Right? Everybody has something to do. What did you all do in the meantime, in between the bench and the time she gets to me? Because you have something to do, and let's not count these inmates either. That's not mistreating him. I had one 15 years old. We went in, he was 50 years old in August when he came home last year. He's been home a year 51. I've seen him fight through fears. He was going to share his story, and he couldn't. He said, because it was so painful. And he cried. He's 400 pounds. And I'm looking at him. What did you all do? Because he saw officers shut the door when someone was bleeding and they was trying to get to him to say, man, this man's going to die here. And these are the horrors that he has to deal with. And then to do the things that we want him to do after incarceration. So everyone has a sense of responsibility. If we truly are community, if we truly are human, we have a sense of responsibility and an obligation. And I think we all have failed at it. So you're talking about reimagining, it's going to have to be a continuity of care. And that's not what we're doing. We're not investing in people, so we're not investing in communities. Whether it's making the job secure, I don't know what it is. But we're going to have to revamp this whole thing, and it's going to have to start from the bench. It's going to have to end from the bench. Bottom line is true. Agreeable.
So I'm gonna ask Lynn the question, like, where do we see this going as far as putting satellite in the prisons, so the ones that are going up for parole give the parole board an opportunity to see, who this person really is. How would that kind of help navigate, parole decision?
I've been to, national and international conferences of other parole boards and paroling authorities. I was the only one from a state that did not see, their people. Emphasis on the word people. And so that said to me that probably best practices are that, well, it certainly seems unneutral to see, like she said, we've got the DA, the Attorney General, vocal, and the victim on this side. And then, and in many cases, because of lack of resources, nobody comes on behalf of the inmate. And so, I certainly, it would make hearings longer, but, you know, it's important, so it needs to be longer. I don't see any barrier to that. When I was in the DA's office in Tuscaloosa, we did, the bond hearings by closed circuit television, or not television, it wasn't actually, but it's like Skype. And so, and it doesn't take long. And then we can actually see the individual. I don't see how Alabama could shoulder the cost of bringing them to actually come to the hearings, but in other states, they have enough parole board members so that they divide and conquer, and they go to the institutions and have the hearings. And so I really don't know what the stats show as far as evidence, you know, any best practices. But it seems only fair, is all I can say. But I will say this, I have never heard anybody mention it one time since I've been on the agency, in the agency. Except for those times when I was interacting with people from other parole boards and they were saying, what? You don't see the individual? Now I get their jacket. But I don't see the individual.
One thing about that is, I'm looking at that, and I didn't know this part, but only I can tell my story. I've lived it, I know what I've done to correct it, only I can tell my story. So it's past unfair for the person not to be there. You can't tell my story. I can't go get Beth and write my story and tell my story from me. She can write it, but I can tell it because it's my story. Again, Alabama backwards.
Hey, let me say something out of experience, because Stephanie did a long time, so. You know, it's just like our families when they are there and you get a chance to say something on the behalf of your loved one that's in there. Regardless of what they would say before, they're standing there scared to death. Most of the time they've heard no before. They're pleading, they're begging, they're nervous. All this stuff is going on. And they can't really even depict and to really translate some of the changes that they may have seen that the individual's gone through, because they're really just, they're hoping to say something to touch the heart of the individuals that are on that bench, right? And the individuals, and most of them are long-time persons that are going, we're not talking about the short-timers. It's easy to let the short-time person out. We know this is going to keep them, but it's non-violent, so it doesn't look bad, right? Well, they just keep coming back. It looks bad when you let a violent person out, right? And you say the board did it, and it wasn't the board that did it. It was classification through the DOC that classified it wrong. So when the board got it, being human error, and they make a decision based on what they've read, right? Not the individual, and say, but because they haven't talked to the counselors, they haven't talked to the officers, they don't have a committee inside of these institutions. And for most men, unlike women, we're in one institution here in the state of Alabama. Men are in another 20 institutions, where you should have a committee of people that deals with these inmates all the time and see them from one institution to another. Now we're talking about the overcrowdedness. Now we're talking about the officers that have to go to different institutions and pull overtime because this institution is short. That really have hands-on with these individuals. They can have a say outside of a piece of paper, we're still talking about a piece of paper that you need to send as a progress report on an inmate, so when we get ready to go for parole, we can just bog down these persons with papers and letters and begging to let these persons out and get to right, real-time stuff so that we can really look at them individually. That's just like me. Right now, you know my passion. Why? Because you're listening to it and you're looking at it. And so now we're talking about the long-time persons that go up on parole, that have heard no 100 times, and the only thing they want to do is just let my people out, right? So you don't know this now. That long-time person, when they get out, they don't know their family, right? You think you know the changes that the person made, and not in a negative way here when I say this. You've written letters, you've seen them once or twice a month. Money gets short, so you don't see them as much. You don't see them as often from when you first got there, and the pain is so fresh. Later on, you see them once a year, as long as you're selling them boxes, as long as you're making sure money is on the books, that kind of stuff. We get callous, we get okay with the fact that we're detaching from our own human existence and with our family members. And so now you're not really engaged in that individual, so you don't even know them anymore. You're really losing contact unbeknown to you, because now you're communicating through letters. They're even shorter, or they're down to one little thing. My children are grown now. All this stuff is going on, and when you get home, guess what? You sit off in the corner. They wonder why you're so strange and you're acting all different and everything, because you don't even know your family anymore. And so these are the same people that you say, Mom, go down there and let them people know I'm ready to come home. You're ready to come home when we got there, but are you really ready to come home? And the only way you're going to know that is that you engage individuals, and that's where and how the offender alumni is working. Because we're going in, we're building relationships first. We're not fixing to come to and tell you about the individual that we haven't dealt with. We don't advocate like that, right? We advocate for an individual, and I know you. Not only have I done time with you, but I've spent time with you, and we've looked at some stuff, and why you ain't doing this, and you need to be doing that. Because we want you to get out and stay out. And we tell them all the time, it hasn't been a problem to get out of prison once you get out. We just need to stay out of prison. But you guys need to
Thank you, Dena. This is we're gonna wrap this thing up. This is the final question, and it's gonna be for Lynn. We watched Lynn brave, battle, walk the ground, and advocate against House Bill 380. We were all there in a new parole reform meeting, as they are trying to put it. And we watched her get retaliated for being brave, and watched these stories come out saying the parole board failed the people and all this violence. They let all these violent people out of prison. They had no factual basis or numbers to back up the number of violent people that was being released, to say that you let 30 violent offenders out of prison, and all 30 of these people have killed somebody. A blanket bill, House Bill 380, was put out there and passed immediately because of a guy that went to Gunnersville and killed 3 people. Under no circumstances do I support violence at all. And we watch fingers get pointed. It's the parole board fault. It's the attorney general fault. It's DOC fault. It's the probation officer, the parole officer fault. In my opinion, it was the DOC fault. They failed that guy. They let him out. You know, as we said here and stated, these people are coming out addicted to drugs. They're mentally ill. So in my opinion, yes, the ADOC failed him, but when you have the chairman and the executive director going to bat for this bill not to get passed, I just want Lynn to expound on, with this bill being passed, this shift in power that has happened with the parole board, what we see it now, and what she thinks we may be expecting.
I think I already said it. I mean, when I first started with the agency, I was going to do a talk about the mission of the Pardon and Parole Board. And I asked somebody to text me the mission statement for the agency. And it boils down like this. It is collaboration with stakeholders, the DA's office, law enforcement, to ensure public safety through a holistic approach approach to rehabilitation of offenders for the reduction of recidivism. And I said, wow, how long has that been the mission statement? I figured that because they redid a mission statement after JRI, and he said 1939 when the agency was committed. I mean, when the agency, was formed. And so the other day, I was asked the question, and I answered it the same way I did when I first came up here. I believe that the mission of the agency has changed. I don't think they've changed that mission statement, but the other day, I was gonna look back over it on the website, and I can't find it anymore. I'm not saying it's not there, but that was pretty telling just to me that, it was kind of a symbol. I don't think you can find that mission in the agency anymore. I believe that there are individuals within the agency who are committed to that mission. So I'm not saying that. There are some very good officers who are committed to reentry, like the one that you experienced. But as far as the administration of the agency, I have not seen any indication that that is their mission. And so I think that the takeaway and the action step for these folks here is exactly what Shay suggested. You need to get the constituents of every legislator on the committees that pass criminal justice reform bills, which are the judiciary committees. You need to go to their website, make a list of every single one of those legislators on the House and the Senate Judiciary Committees, and you need to find some like-minded to you, like-minded to this, and actually it should be like-minded to this, because one thing in that mission statement is to ensure public safety. Well, one thing I learned after 18 years as a prosecutor is that locking them up is not ensuring public safety. It's not reducing recidivism. We're still creating victims, and that's because these people aren't being held. Now, I will say there are some really good programs in the Department of Corrections. There's just too few of them. But I think that we need to find folks who elect these people to tell them what they want, because they are representing that constituency. So they need to hear from them that this is what we need for public safety. Because what they've done is not going to affect public safety at all. And I think it pretty much ripped Senate Bill 67 to shreds. The only thing that's left is the Class D felonies, and I really can't think of anything else that's still there. And anyone, the Senate Commission, as somebody said this morning, actually Senator Ward said this, the Sentencing Commission is saying that you have to, well actually I don't think he said this, in order to affect our incarceration rates, you have to do it on the back end. Yes, it helps to do it on the front end for diversion, but you have to do it on the back end or you won't affect it at all. We're already up to about, I think, 26,000, and we were at, no, we're not. We're back up to like 23 or 24,000 when in the first of the year we were at 21. So it's gonna get worse.
That's good. And, we House Bill 3 passed, and anybody who commits a Class A felony on before March 21st, 2001, that bill went back and got people that's been in prison, that's worked hard for a parole date. So now you're saying they gotta do 15 years, but we got a problem. This DOJ report, I've got this overcrowding. Wow.
Nobody noticed this part. If they got consecutive sentences, they're gonna tack on. They're gonna boxcar those early eligibility rates. So that initial eligibility rate for somebody with 3 life sentences is, guess what? 45 years. That's in that 380. It's in there, nobody's talking about it. in any one of those committees, somebody mentioned the DOJ report in the context of House Bill 380. Guess how many times it came up? Can anybody guess?
I guess zero.
Zero. None.
Absolutely none.
Well, anybody got questions? Because we're gonna wrap it up. Any quick questions, any takeaways from this? Call to action calls. We got, Lynn is officially gone, so we will have access to another file. Another freedom file. Pastor Glasgow, any takeaways?
Yeah, well, the first thing I'm gonna say is I'm really hurt, and Lynn knows that she's gone. Everything that you alluded to, we've been doing for years, and when Lynn got there, she reinforced it. I think we got out almost 100 inmates, because Lynn was like, we know what Tom's doing, and Lynn took time to come to Dothan and go over all my halfway houses, my 2 million houses. She tell you I got a resort for women. She was like, oh my God, I got a pool and everything. And we deal with them inside prison a year before they get out. That's part of the lawsuit with the voting rights that we're gonna get back together with Dena and go push DOC on. But with all that being done, it's to no avail now. They came at me with a charge. Lynn is gone. Lynn, what do we do now? Because I don't want people to get discouraged because they don't have the circuit where they can watch, the person can talk to the parole board. But I want to encourage people before they leave here that advocate and that person, even though the family be scared and all that, those of us that are used to going and speaking before that parole board, Lynn Head would tell you now, and I know she will, that makes a hell of a difference.
It does. You need to go on behalf of them. And if you know anybody who has if you have a friend who has a family member, go with them and hold their hand. It definitely helps to see that they have community support. That's one of the specific criteria that we're asked to look at, if they have community support. And so, and I will say this, Cliff Walker and Dwayne Spurlock definitely have a heart for reentry and redemption. They believe, like I do, that there is not a single soul, no matter what they've done, that is beyond the redemption. And so go and talk to them. Go and tell them. Somebody said they were upset because a former assistant AG had been appointed to my position. And let's hold off and be objective, because she's appeared before the board a few times, and she seemed to come around at least to the idea of you don't EOS somebody, you let them come out on supervision to give them some help while there's incentive for them to change. And so she actually acclimated that and tailored her arguments in protest, and sometimes didn't protest if they were close to their EOS so that we could place them on supervision. So give her a chance. I don't know how she'll do. I don't know her well, but I always have hope. There's no point in talking about any of this if we don't have hope.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
I have a question. So, now that you're gone, when families come to protest, why are they given so much leverage?
Tell me what you mean by leverage. Why do
It appeared to me, at the hearing that I was at with my husband, the DA said, in his own words, we're coming to an end where he needs to be free. But the family wanted him to stay.
What are you talking about, the victim?
The victim's family.
and I think you said it was like 4 years ago. Yeah, the board has dramatically changed since then. So I have not seen that. If the DA, are you saying the DA there
No,
was
I'm just saying,
advocating?
it just, and I'll talk to you later.
Yeah, we can talk about it, but
It just seems that if the victim family, because they're restorative justice that occurs before a parole hearing to bring some level of healing. And so now you have a family coming, they're still hurt, they're still angry.
And that's not gonna change.
Sometimes it does change.
Sometimes, very rarely does it change, you are right, but very rarely does it change. They're hurt, I mean, that pain doesn't go away of losing somebody, whether it's to a violent crime or not.
That, sometimes that's true, but it just seems like, at what point did the parole board say that? It just seems like they have a lot of leverage, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
More so than being able to see the person as a changed individual.
well, I think that, when Eddie Cook went on the board, the viewpoint changed. And I think that's why Bill Wynn left when he did, and that's when I came. And really, there was this shift, because I had been a prosecutor, I was actually concerned about the appearance of what you're talking about. I didn't want people to just, well, for example, people probably thought the same thing about me that people were saying about Lee Watney. Oh, she's been a career prosecutor, she's not gonna let anybody out. And it was very important to me to show a difference. And so, I don't think that we should, I don't think that has been that way since that time. And I don't know, what they say, there are many times when we have to just tell them, I'm sorry, everything, and I've said it many, many times, I always gave the speech. Look, it's not, we can't do anything to affect the pain that you feel. There's nothing that we can do to change how you're gonna feel about this, but there's everything in this person's file that says they have changed. And our training says that it's time for them to come out. And so, and some of them cussed me, and some of them said, thank you for explaining that to them.
But isn't that an opportunity for restorative justice right there? I mean, I just in observing the dockets down at the parole board, that's one thing that has really emerged for me, is the whole system is set up as an adversarial situation. I mean, you've got the victims and their people in one room, and the advocates for the person who's coming up for parole in the other. There's no go-between. And I've seen people stand up there that are victims, and they're like asking for an opportunity of restorative
They
justice.
do.
They want to talk to the offender, and
They
there's
do.
no avenue to do that.
Yeah. The only opportunity that I see for that is, as far as changes, there was one good thing that came out of, that executive order in October, and the governor asked that I create an advisory council for the agency, which I did. And I have strenuously advocated that they continue that advisory council. And one of the last few things that we talked about was an opportunity for restorative justice. Of course, there are a lot of settings in which you have to explain what that is.
Yeah.
We all know what it is, but anyway, I think that advisory council has a big opportunity to change things, and I hope that that Judge Craddock will continue to employ that council.
Good time, can I ask that? And one thing, Ms. Lynn, please tell the people that she got on the advisory council, I'll give you the names later, are still there. And they don't publicly do it, but privately, the restorative justice has happened.
Yeah.
There's some laws, and I don't know if Ms. Lynn go into it, or some rules and regulations that the board themselves can't do it, but that victim rights advocate that she has put in place can do it. And we have done it a lot, but you can't publicize it.
Yeah.
We haven't got to that point yet.
Yeah.
So, she'll discuss it.
Final question, Stephanie.
Quick question. Listen to what Dena was saying, and also what you were saying about the victim. Do you think, William, do you think that the parole process will become harder in order to justify giving additional victims?
Let me make sure I understand your question. Are you saying that, are you asking if I think that parole requirements are going the same people are advocating for both. Harder to make parole and let's lock them all up, and because we need to lock them all up, we need to build all these new prisons. Nobody's talking about the consequences of one to the other. They're not relating one to the other, so no, I don't think it'll have anything to do about it. I mean, so far it hasn't come up since October the 15th. And that report came out when, in February?
Well, Lynn will probably hang around for y'all who want to probably ask her some questions, but we thank you all for staying with us today. I want to thank the ACLU Talks, Forward.us, all the sponsors that helped put this event together. Southern Poverty Law Center, Dylan and Rebecca and Steph and Dena and Stephanie and Kenny and Beth, everybody. So we'll be back next year, but we're gonna be moving into Montgomery next year. We're gonna keep this conversation going, and we leave here as Senator Ward and Singleton and everybody gave all these great tips. They're about action. Action plan. They want to hear from the people. So we gotta do our part. 'Cause they've already put it out. They want to hear from us. Thank you.
Let me give a big hand